Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your buddy, Paladino Joey, also known as Joey Owygen. I am the host of Brave the Wild. It's great to have you with me once again today. Brave the Wild is available on thesportstuff.com and on iTunes. Today, we have episode number 28. And we're going to have some changes to the show a little bit here. We're going to try to have shorter intros. I'm eliminating the ads for now. We'll still have short, tiny little breaks with a little bit of music, a little bit of fun, goofy little music in between. So less plugging, more Minnesota Wild. That is what you fans want, according especially to a message I got, I guess. You could call it a message, a review, whatever it is. So that is I'm going to make some adjustments. Doesn't agree with everything the person said, but yeah, going to make adjustments. Sorry I've been away for a month. I already told you why. Lots of lawn cleanups, lots of work to do. So here we go. Ready to talk hockey. Brave the Wild, episode number 28. Please do call into our phone lines, though. 209-736-7877. 209-736-7877. Let your voice be heard here on Brave the Wild. So today, on episode number 28, Concussion Junction. That's right. Concussion Junction. That is what the Minnesota Wild have become, with 4 players. Now, dealing with concussion issues. 4 players out with a concussion at the same time. Talk about bad luck, and that's just very unfortunate. Very unfortunate indeed. And that's going to be the opening topic for today. Get into the concussions here. As remember this old song when you were a little kid? When you were a little kid.
Conjunction Junction, what's your function?
Yeah, that's pretty much what the Wild are. Not Conjunction Junction, but Concussion Junction. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable how things have gone for this team. Pierre-Marc Bouchard has played 1 game all season. 1 game all season. Been out with a concussion ever since start of the year. The start of the year. Now it's at a point of headaches, I guess you could say, but really it's from a concussion. Pierre-Marc Bouchard, as you look at his career numbers, has been a very, very durable guy. I mean, last year was the first year in his career when he didn't play about 80 games, other than his rookie year when he got scratched a lot because he was so young, so young and so raw. 71 games last year, missed 11 games. 1 game so far this year. And Pierre-Marc Bouchard's numbers kind of dipped a bit last year, too. Remember, he was about a 59, 60-point guy. Only 46 points last year. Struggles. His assists way down from what he was before. Goals were up to 16. But overall, Pierre-Marc Bouchard, unfortunately, the injury bug has officially begun to really bite this guy. And it's too bad. Still a little ways away from returning to NHL hockey. Regarding Pierre-Marc Bouchard, Petr Sykora, as we continue here. Now, of course, his concussion occurred during my break from this show. It wasn't a break, that's, by the way, 70-some hours a week because of 2 jobs going insane. Yeah, that was fun. The break from the show. Petr Sykora also incurred a concussion. He's only got 3 points this season, by the way, only 2 goals. 3 and 1 assist so far for Petr Sykora in 10 games. Out as of November 9th with a concussion. So he is on the injured reserve. Bad deal there. A pretty bad concussion for Petr Sykora. Another guy whose number is actually pretty similar to Bouchard's. More goals, less assists, but point totals about the same, of course. And this year, the stars aren't aligning for the Minnesota Wild this season so far. I mean, it's not looking good. As of right now, the Wild, last place in the Western Conference. Last place in the West Conference with only 19 points. As we continue now to Brent Burns, and this one, of course, is the most frustrating, the most alarming also as well, and kind of scary. Brent Burns. Now, what did I just listened to? I just re-listened to State of the Wild. That was back in June, or early May, right at the end of the Wild season last year. Brent Burns had concussion issues last year. They kind of covered it up for about a month, or at least he did, and there was some confusion there, and it was really weird how things were handled. This year is taken care of a lot faster. But now Brent Burns joins Concussion Junction.
Conjunction Junction, what's your function?
Yep, Concussion Junction. And hey, I apologize if some people out there might not like anybody making light of it, and I don't mean to. It's just, it's so ridiculous how many players are having concussion issues at the same time. The same time. How could this be happening? You know, it's like, my goodness, it's like people are sticking their heads out, literally. I mean, it's just been really bad luck for the Minnesota Wild here in Concussion Junction, as we hope and pray these players recover. But as mentioned, you know, once you get that first concussion, it can become a more and more of an issue. You're more prone to further issues, more and more concussions. And Brent Burns has one. Less than a year later, he has a second concussion already. Very scary, very disappointing. The 24-year-old Brent Burns already with his second career concussion. And that's too bad. Off to a pretty good start. 5th leading scorer on the Wild. Now, that's not always saying much. 5th leading scorer on the Wild, he might have 1 point, you know, with the way this team performs offensively. But 10 points in 21 games. Brent Burns, unfortunately, concussion symptoms once again. Concussion symptoms once again. Very, very frustrating. As of November 20th, they're saying he's day-to-day, but I don't know. It's concussion symptoms again. So very, very disappointing there. So that's pretty much the deal here. So far, Martin Havlat off to a horrendous start. Only 8 points in 19 games. Only 8 points in 19 games for Martin Havlat. Not quite what Wild fans expected from Martin Havlat either. Right now, he's out with a hamstring, so there's another injury note. He's day-to-day. Not a concussion, luckily. I did mention 4 players had a concussion. I'm correcting it to 3. It was actually 3. I believe there was one other one earlier in the year that had one, but I can't remember who that is at this point. It's just going to have to move on from that, but I'm pretty darn sure there was a 4th player, so forgive me there. The busy schedule kind of ate my memory up a little bit. But, yeah, it's a pretty scary deal. You just hope these players can recover sooner than later. And this isn't an issue long-term for most of these guys, especially Brent Burns, who's the youngest of the group and the most promising. 2 concussions already. Man, you just don't need that. And, yeah, me and Neil talked about that at length back in May. Neil, Nate, Doug Thiesing, a guy I'd like to rejoin the show at some point in time. So the frustration continues for the Minnesota Wild. Indeed. So that's pretty much the first topic, was the concussions. Not really much I can say other than it's alarming when you get so many players having it at the same time, and when the same player has it twice in less than a year. That's a very scary sign. So the other 2 topics we're going to get into today are, of course, we're going to generally get into the play of the Wild this month of November. We're also going to talk about the trades, the acquisitions, the trades and acquisitions. Benoit Pouliott is gone. Benoit Pouliott, no longer a player for the Minnesota Wild. He's gone to Montreal. That should be very interesting. The French-Canadian Benoit Pouliott, who grew up very close to Montreal. And we get another French-Canadian in return. Again, a name I really can't say. He hasn't played for the Wild yet. Guillaume Latendresse. If I mispronounced it, I apologize. 2nd-round pick, so we're going to get into that in the final segment. The middle segment, we're going to kind of talk about the general play of the Wild. So that's pretty much the idea there. Also in that 3rd segment, we're going to get into Danny Ehrman. Finally is a member of the Minnesota Wild. Danny Ehrman. After all the frustration going on with the Houston Aeros and the Wild organization in general, Danny Ehrman is on the Minnesota Wild, at least for now. So far, has played 2 games and no points. Also, acquisition of Andrew Ebbet, so who scored his goal in his first game. So there you go. We'll get into that very, very shortly into segment number 3. So with no further ado, we'll take our first break. We'll talk about the general play of the Minnesota Wild right after this. And we are back here on Brave the Wild. Boy, it's been a fun month of November for the Wild, hasn't it? It's been a lot of fun. Yep, more red on the old schedule, but at least a couple victories. Thursday the 5th, the Wild lose to Vancouver. What a surprise. A home game, 5-2. Not much going on there. They come back and beat the Dallas Stars on November the 7th, 3-2. That was a good game for the Wild. That was a lot of fun, and that was also able to see the green jerseys once again. The green jerseys, the real exciting green jerseys. Me and my friend Paul Tunivers Caniff, not really enthralled with those green jerseys. I mean, it looks like the Minnesota Wild are trying to go back to the 1960s with those jerseys. But here's the problem. The Wild didn't play in the 1960s, so what's the point? Why would you get so obsessed with the red jerseys when they were the third jerseys a few years ago that you didn't even wear the green ones enough, so they had to get disbanded, and then you bring back jerseys that look like they're 50 years old when the Wild didn't play 50 years ago? Very, very interesting there. Very, very interesting there. I don't know what's going on. I really don't know what the deal is with that. Yeah. So let's continue. I apologize for that. The Wild actually win 2 games in a row. It's a miracle. They defeat Toronto in Toronto as the Eastern Conference domination continues. Oh, for one more game at least. One last game, unfortunately, for that time being. November the 10th, the Wild beat up Toronto, and in Toronto, Toronto, Ontario, baby. 5-2 victory. So let's keep that East Coast, Eastern Conference dominance. Let's continue it. Tampa Bay, man, we always have success against the Tampa Bay Lightning. You can't go wrong there when you're going Thursday night in Tampa on the 12th. Oh, you can go wrong, all right. The Wild were up 3-1 in this game, folks. 3-1. 3-1. And Tampa Bay comes back and ties it up, sends it into overtime, and just like clockwork, the Tampa Bay Lightning score in overtime, and the Wild just choke out a game that just signifies how the frustration of the play of this team the last couple of years. And boy, that was pretty hard to swallow. But we always have success against the Washington Capitals. So the next night, the Wild lose 3-1 against the Washington Capitals. Great. Go figure, right? All right, well, we beat Carolina earlier. We can take them out in Carolina. We can do it. No, another overtime loss for the Wild. Another one of the Wild just coughed up the lead. Lose there. The Wild's success against Phoenix had been good until late last season, and they lose again to the Phoenix Coyotes. 3-2 Wednesday the 18th. Then they pull out a victory against the horrendous New York Islanders. Well, not horrendous, but still not very good, even though they have Dwayne Rolison. Of course, Roley did not play in that game. The Wild squeak out a victory against the New York Islanders at home. They barely win the game. Barely won that game. Friday the 20th. 3-2. And just most recently, just a game the Wild played fairly competitive against Boston just 2 nights ago. And lose in overtime lose in a shootout to the Boston Bruins. The frustration continues there. There was a shootout also with the Carolina Hurricanes, by the way. But, yeah, you could just see it happen. The Wild couldn't get anything going in that little shootout. And it's over. The Wild have a pretty rough month of November. We have 2 games to go. Playing Colorado in about 2 hours. So we'll see what happens there. That should be interesting. And then Colorado again in a back-to-back tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So that would be a Mountain Time game, baby. So, oh goody. Go Wild, right? Colorado. Let's just hope something good can come out of that little 2-game series there. That'll wrap up the month of November. So the Wild officially win 3 games at this point in time. They have 3 regulation losses and 3 overtime or shootout losses. So basically, the Wild are 3-6 in the month of November. Any playoff hopes still pretty much very much out of the picture at this point in time, and that's just too bad. That's just very frustrating. I love this team, and not loving what's happening right now. That's for darn sure. Just real quick before we get into the next topic. let's look at the NHL in general. I mean, look at the defending champion Pittsburgh Penguins still dominating. Number 1 in the Eastern Conference, Washington. That is going to be fun. Ottawa's regained their prominence, win their division. They're in 3rd place in the East. And you go over to the West, San Jose right back where they were last year at the top with Chicago, and Colorado goes from last to first. Colorado Avalanche still in 1st place in the division, but the Calgary Flames breathing down their backs with just 1 point behind. I would like to see the Calgary Flames win the division since the Wild aren't going to. And, Calgary Puck Radio, I noticed that some subscribers of this show are also subscribed to that show. So, hey, welcome aboard, Calgary Flame fans. Great to have you on board. That's my second favorite team, even though they're a big rival. Love the logo, love the history, Just a kind of a team that it's not as easy to hate other than Jerome McGinley, who drives me insane. But, sorry, side note there. But, yeah, it's pretty surprising to see the Colorado Avalanche way up in 3rd and Calgary 4th. Nice to see that, at least. The LA Kings still in playoff contention, believe it or not. 5th seed. And Columbus riding the 8th seed. You got Nashville and Dallas, 6 and 7. Very interesting there. The biggest surprise so far, though, or 2 big surprises, Detroit so far only 10th in the conference. I don't think that's going to last, but maybe the magic has run out for the Detroit Red Wings. Just maybe. Probably not. Vancouver, you love to see this. They're the 11th seed. Gotta love that. Vancouver not doing so hot. 13 and 11, so the years of you just got to win about 8 games to make the playoffs, that doesn't exist anymore, as teams with winning records are not in the playoff hunt right now. So, very, very interesting when you look at that. Like Tampa Bay over there in the East, same thing going on over there, believe it or not. Atlanta, too. Winning records, no playoff berth at this point in time. They wouldn't be in the playoffs, so to speak. But it's just, again, it's been a very interesting deal with the Wild. They've played about 500 hockey in their last 10. They're 6-3 at home, 9-2 on the road. There's also 6-3-1 at home officially, but nice to see the home success, but the road has been horrendous. It has been so bad and virtually unwatchable, to be honest. And the Wild look like a last-place team right now as they hold the 15th seed in the Western Conference at this point in time. Anaheim just ahead of them, 14th seed with 21 points. Carolina and Toronto, 2 teams the Wild beat this year at the very, very bottom of the Eastern Conference. If the season ended today, the Wild would have the 3rd pick in the draft. So, well, we could use a player like that. So maybe having one real crappy season wouldn't be so bad after all, I guess, because the Minnesota Wild with this current roster, they're not going anywhere. They're just not. There is no prominent scorer on this team. Mikko Koivu is a 2-way player, a very intelligent, tough, a really good leader, 2-way type player, but he's not a dominant goal scorer. And Martin Havlat, well, he had a 3-assist game like way back at the beginning of the season, and ever since, well, he's got 5 points other than that one game. That is pathetic. So, not sure what to think right now at this point in time. I guess the system worked a little better for Martin Havlat in Chicago when he had other players around him who could score. Andrew Brunette's been scoring this year, but he's 36. Owen Nolan's having an okay year, but he's 37. So it's just like, okay, where's the optimism right now? Well, the one good thing is Danny Ehrman's up from the Houston Aeros. The bad thing is he sucked on the Houston Aeros, so what's he going to do in the NHL? Frustration's going to continue with that too, I think. Yeah. The only way you're going to build this farm system is through the draft, and I guess we're just going to have to endure a couple of bad years. That's just the only way I think this team is going to emerge. And unfortunately, guys like Andrew Brunette, Owen Nolan ain't going to be here when that happens. They ain't going to be here. Owen Nolan's in the final year of his contract. Andrew Brunette in the second last year of his contract. Not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if one or both Andrew Brunette and Owen Nolan were traded at some point during this year, because Chuck Fletcher's obviously a lot more aggressive than Doug Crappy Risebrough. I'm sorry. Risebrough had some good moments, but the last several years, it's just been stale. It's been stale as yesterday's lunch, man, with Doug Risebrough, and that's why he's no longer the general manager of the Wild. I absolutely love Andrew Brunette, but I think he'd be better suited right now on a playoff team, at least for his sake. I hope one way or another he can come back and be a part of the organization, one way or another, if he's here long term, or he's traded to another team. Owen Nolan, there's almost no chance he'd be back, even though he's been a very productive and a positive for this team. There's just no way he's going to be back at age 37. This team has got to kind of move on. The mustache-laden team is the Minnesota Wild, all wearing mustaches. It looks kind of weird, but that's for a good cause, so I'm going to respect that, even though it looks kind of weird, some of these guys with mustaches. Lots of handlebars are just kind of cool in that sense, but sorry, side note. Just not sure what to think right now when it comes to this team. They're not very watchable. And like other people say, if your goalie is always your top star, your team is not very good. That's a bad sign. That's a really bad sign. And your leading goal scorer is a 36-year-old, and he's got 8 goals about a fourth into the season. That's not a good sign either. So, shoot, more than a fourth into the year. This year's going by pretty quick. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, you just keep making changes. That's about what you're going to have to do. Todd Richard's system, well, I'm not 100% sure about it just yet, but you need more players, you need more scorers for Todd Richard's system to really take shape. And Wild don't really have that just yet. It sure as hell ain't going to be Benoit Pouliott, and that's why he's gone. And I'm not sure it's Chuck Kobasu either. I don't know what they're so excited about him for with 3 points, 12 games. He's behind Nick Schultz so far in scoring. That's a problem. Yeah. Forgive the lame chuckle there, but so that's pretty much the deal when it comes to the regular play of the Wild at this point in time. We're going to get into the acquisitions, so a little bit, I wouldn't say it's positive, but a little bit of more change going on, a little more quote-unquote news, you could call it. So we'll get to that right after this. And we're back here on Brave the Wild, episode number 28, a reminder for iPod, Microsoft Zune, and other MP3 player users. I apologize I didn't mention that after the previous break. That's a little reminder that a lot of you might count on if you're on an iPod Shuffle or something like that. So, again, thanks for joining the show. Now we're going on to the acquisition talk. Benoit Pouliott is no longer a member of the Minnesota Wild, as mentioned. He grew up 75 miles from Montreal. He never lived up to the lofty expectations in Minnesota. And, we took him 4th overall in 2005. And, boy, it didn't really seem like much was going on. Benoit Pouliott is 23 years old. We were able to get that Guillaume Latendresse. Good luck with that name. I have no idea. He was a second-round pick for the Habs, the Montreal Canadiens. And here's a quote from GM Chuck Fletcher. I almost said Doug Risebrough. I'm just so glad I'm not saying that name anymore. As you could tell, I have a little bit of frustration with old Dougie. All right, here we go. These are two players whose best days are ahead of them. You have two young players, both of whom have great potential and hopefully can both thrive in a new environment. We just felt it was an opportunity to get a big, strong power forward, so that's the good part. He's bigger and stronger, and somebody who has the potential to be a contributor for us for years to come. I don't know, whatever. I'll get it when I actually hear his name more from the announcers, because he hasn't played yet. Guillaume has a good touch around the net, and he's already shown he can score as a young player, and that's with limited ice time and power play time. Skating is not his forte, unfortunately. Some of this information, of course, courtesy of the Star Tribune, Michael Russo, one of the best columnists in town. 6'2", 230-pound Latendresse, who hails from St. Catherine, Quebec, was thrust into the NHL as a 19-year-old in 2006. Montreal critics also feel the rush to the league hampered his development. And, I agree with that. That kind of thing, if somebody isn't ready to play, you shouldn't really rush them into the NHL. You could say that happened with Burns early on. You could definitely say that happened with James Shepherd. Because what has James Shepherd done? James Shepherd, how many points does he have this year? Let's take a look. 3 points in 21 games. That's pathetic. And how many did he have last year? About 20 the whole year. And most of his points came in the last 2 months of the year because he's just kind of recovering from a horrendous season with about 6 points in the first 3-4 months of the year. Pathetic. So sometimes it just doesn't work out for some of these guys. It just doesn't. Let's look at Pouliott real quick as we do a little comparison here. Benoit Pouliott. Whew. Great memories, good times. I mean, we're going to really miss him here in Minnesota with his 11 points in 37 games last year. Was up and down. Management and him never saw eye to eye. And we're talking the Doug Riseborough, Jacques Lemaire management. So obviously this management didn't have much to see, didn't really have much, interest in this guy either if they traded him so quickly. 4 points in 14 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, 18 points in 65 career games. And folks, he was drafted in 2005 with his 4th overall pick. It's not like he was drafted 2 years ago. He was drafted 4 years ago. And that's all we've seen so far out of old Benoit Pouliott. So it's been an interesting deal there. Pouliott, known for his skating, Guillaume, or however you say it, not known for his skating. He's more known for his power, and that's good. Wild needs some more strength up front. Now it's just a matter of, can the son of a gun score? Can he score? Somebody's got to score. He's not going to be a dominant scorer, but at least maybe something. Anything. Now, please, we're begging. We're begging you, help us. So let's look at him right now. He's actually a year younger than Benoit Pouliott. Taken in the same draft, though, 45th overall by the Habs, the Montreal Canadiens. So far, just 3 points. So he's got 1 point less than Pouliott. He's actually played 23 games, though. 232 overall, 85 points total. He's had a couple of 20-plus point years. If you look at his full career here. 2 years ago, well, shucks, as a rookie, first year in the NHL, had his career year, 13 assists, 16 goals, 29 points. The next year, 16 goals again, 11 points in 73 games. That makes 27 points. Last year, 26 points in only 56 games and 14 goals, 12 assists there. So there's a little hope. There's a little hope, some development. The numbers aren't really anything that really jump out at me. Other than he did get 5 power play goals as a rookie and 3 game-winning goals his first 2 years in the NHL. Each year, so 6 total, 2 game-winning goals last year. So at least the guy gets goals at times when you need them. And for a guy whose role was not too high, I got to think he was a 3rd or 4th liner with the Canadiens. A little bit of power play time, though. And, hey, if you can get 5 power play goals and 5 power play assists, that's 10 points. That's not bad. So at least he's effective in the man advantage, which is, I guess, all the Wild have been to this point. They're not a bad team on the man advantage, but they can't score in full strength. So go figure. That's pretty much in the Wild's deal. They're good at special teams, but not good in regulation time, so to speak. So the Wild need to get that going, and we'll see if Latendresse can get that going at some point in time. Again, I apologize if the name is butchered and stupid sounding, but that's the best I can do right now. Sorry, guys. It's the best I can do. What do you expect from a guy who hasn't, been able to do the show the last 3.5 weeks? So that's the way it goes there. Also, the Wild made a huge acquisition. Huge! This guy was put on waivers from the Chicago Blackhawks. Never drafted. Andrew Ebbet, and he is a huge guy, too, by the way. Huge. 5'9", 174 pounds. But, whatever. Let's see what happens. He's got 2 goals this year so far. He got 1 goal in 10 games. 1 goal in his first game with the Wild. That was just the other night. Pretty cool in that sense. At least he's done something. Andrew Ebbet is his name. I'll admit, don't really know too much about him. And obviously, I don't think too many people do. He was just one of those guys who was put on waivers. The Wild see something in him that the Blackhawks didn't. Calgary, Alberta native, so there you go. Probably a former Calgary Flames fan, I would think. Born in 1983. He's 26 years old, obviously. So we'll see how things go with Andrew Ebbet. He's something, anything. Of course, the number one reason why this number 16, Andrew Ebbet, is on the Wild is because he is a center. That's the number one reason he's on the Wild, because how many centers do the Wild have? Like, no, that are anything halfway decent. James Shepherd is considered a center. He sucks at this point in time. He's had a really horrible start to his career. Well, his rookie year was okay, but other than that, he's been disappointing. Kyle Brodziak is solid. Ebbet, of course, yeah, there you go. There's your other center. Mikko Koivu was your number one guy. Belanger is your number two center at this point in time. So it's like, you got to have some depth, and we'll see what happens with Andrew Ebbet. That's pretty much how things go. He's inexpensive, $500,000. It's a lot of money for any of us. That'd be like a CEO of a company, practically. But in hockey terms, it's, chump change, so definitely not an issue there. It's a cheap fix. We'll see what happens with that. Who knows? Sometimes the Wild pull a rabbit out of their hat. They've done it before. Aaron Voros, other guys, Pascal Dupuis, guys that didn't really get much playing time anywhere else, and all of a sudden, boom, they're pretty good. Wes Walz is a huge example. Jim Dowd, the number of the names go on and on. Obviously, totally different coaching scheme and different general manager. So we'll see if that success continues with this version of the Minnesota Wild. But that's pretty much how things stand right now. It's all pretty much just a wait and see. I mean, the Minnesota Wild and our fans, we're going to pretty much just have to hurry up and wait. That's pretty much how things stand with the Wild at this point in time. It's hurry up and wait. You got Concussion Junction. You got to wait for those guys to heal. You got other injuries, hamstrings, who knows what else. I mean, gosh, you had Brunette's ACL partial tear last year. That's not good. Burns just, multiple concussions already at a young age. Frightening. Age 24, Brent Burns, one of the cornerstones of this team right now. Oof. I mean, we're just going to have to hurry up and wait, I guess. That's pretty much where we stand. Going to have to hope to get a big-time draft pick this year. That's the best we're going to have to do, because other than that, finding diamonds in the rough isn't easy to do. And plus, those diamonds in the rough don't always last. I mean, their magic runs out. Pascal Dupuis, did he really sustain his good play? He had one good year. One. He had two okay years and one good year. And in the end, he was just kind of like a pain in the butt, and the Wild got sick of him and let him go. Aaron Voros, well, he got overpaid. Somebody threw a ton of money at him, and he took off. He had an okay run, whatever, though. Lottie freaking da. So it's pretty much where things are going to stand at the Wild at this point in time. It's all we can do is hurry up and wait. So I hope you listeners liked the change of format, especially you out there that didn't like the former format at all, where I kind of reviewed games more than got into background info. Lots of background info to talk about this time, so it made the show a lot of fun. I'm going to do the best I can to keep the show closer to this format. Talk about the gameplay, but not so much numbers all the time. Sometimes there's going to be numbers, especially when you look at how a player's doing and all that good stuff, but not just numbers. We're going to get more into background info and just have a conversation about the Minnesota Wild, and I hope to have more guests in the future, like Neil and others, some knowledgeable hockey fans, so I could kind of have a conversation, sit back and have a conversation with him and you out there, you listeners out there. You can help by calling into the phone lines, as mentioned before, 209-736-7877, 209-736-7877. Don't forget to sign up for the message boards. We need more hockey fans on the sportstuff.com front page of the website. There's a button in the upper right-hand corner that says TSS Boards. Click on that. You will see a link that says register. Click on that as well. Mention Palladino Live as a referral. Two separate words, Palladino Live. And, of course, check out minnesota.nhlfansite.com, minnesota.nhlfansite.com, a really cool Minnesota Wild website. Nice enough to put a link to this show on their page. So, again, thank you, listeners. Hope you enjoyed the new format of the show. This was a blast. I really enjoyed doing it this way. And this is going to be, going to do my best to keep it this way. And hope for guests in the future. So, until then, you take care. Go Wild. Well, go draft pick, I guess.